Hello, everybody. We'll wait a few more minutes as people continue to join the call. All right, looks good. So we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar for the returning resident application. We appreciate you willing to do this to help make the process easier and less stressful for you as you continue through the returner process. So my name is Bridget and I'm the marketing specialist with University Housing. There's some other housing folks on the call. Dan Rosner and Kara Reimers, who they will answer any questions that you have in the chat. And then later, Dan will talk about the open space selection process. So we will go ahead and get started. So the application is open. It opened up in October, and the deadline for the returner application is January 30th at 11:59. So you still have that entire day to get it done. We will still accept housing applications for current residents after that date, but it won't be for the reservation process. So this is really just to get into the reservation process and all that entails. And with that, it is a $200 advance payment that goes onto your student bill, and we need that for your application to be complete. And then a side note is that once you move out of housing, if you go to reapply, you will not be considered a returning resident. So your application will be as if you were a new student. So you have to consistently live in housing to be considered a returning resident. So there are a handful of reasons to live on campus. As you are currently living on campus, you are living and breathing these, but obviously the easiest one is you're close to classes and close to campus life and all that campus has to offer. So all the different resources that we have, you can walk to campus, not have to worry about, or walk to classes, not have to worry about getting in your car, driving through Eversville traffic. So it's quick and easy to all your classes and resources, as well as being safe and secure with all of our procedures and policies and SOE police and staff that we have to make it a safe living environment for everyone. And we also see that students living on campus have a higher GPA and more credit hours. And so you are here to learn and get a degree. And so living on campus helps you achieve and succeed in those areas. And also a big one is the all-inclusive billing. You don't have 100 different bills to pay. It all, including Wi-Fi, utility, water, all that stuff goes onto your student account with living on campus. So important dates, please take a screenshot of this or visit our website to remember these dates. So again, the deadline to complete the returner application is January 30th, and that is also the deadline for roommate matching. And so if you and your current roommates want to continue to live together, you still need to make a roommate group, and the deadline to do that is also January 30th. After that, if you choose to go through open space selection, that opens up on February 9th, and then that will close on February 24th. And then in between that, the summer application opens on February 23rd. So if you need to live on campus over the summer, that application will open up February 23rd, and it is a separate application from the returner app. And then the deadline for everything is May 1st. So if you do need to cancel, you need to cancel by that date so you don't pay a cancellation fee. So those are just the key dates to remember for this process. So if you are a current student in Bluff, Prairie, or Woodland, you have a few options for the reservation process. So if you are currently or going to be an honors student, you have the option to live in the Upper Class Honors LLC, and that is just something you would select on your application is that you want to live in that LLC, and then that's all you gotta select. But if you're not an honor student wanting to live in that LLC, then you have two other options, and that is moving into a new space in either Evergreen or Cougar Village. So that first process is being a homesteader roommate. And so really what that is if someone you know currently lives in Evergreen or Cougar Village, you can live with them in their current type of space. And so you would just select it on your application, and that person just has to select homestead on their roommate for them to be in that, for you all to be in that space. The second option is open space selection. So that is you are given a time slot where you will go into my housing and you will see every single type of space that we have available. It will be the exact building and room number and everything. And so you just select a space that you want, and that will be your assignment. And then if you currently live in Evergreen Hall, your options are very similar with the same. You can choose to live in the Honors LLC, and that's all you'd have to select. Now that you're currently living in Evergreen, if you want to keep that space, you can select Homestead, and that says that you want to stay in the same type of space by yourself. Or you can homestead with any current resident or bring in any other resident. So really, if I'm in Evergreen, I homestead, Dan can put homestead roommate on his application, and then we're in a roommate group. Dan would then come in and live in the same type of space that I'm living in. So you can either do it in a group or by yourself. But if you want to move to a new space, again, you can switch to homestead or roommate and move to a different place where someone else is homesteading at, or you can go through open space selection and look through all the open spaces that we have available, and you can select from there. And these are the type of spaces in Evergreen Hall. If you are not familiar, there's a 4-person suite, 4-person private bedroom apartment, a studio apartment, and a 6-person apartment. And so really, if you hear suite, that means it doesn't have a kitchen, and apartment means it has a kitchen. So that's the big difference between those. And a majority, minus the 6-person apartment, are all private bedrooms. So if you are living in Cougar Village currently, your options are the same as in Evergreen, where you can choose to live in the Upper Class Honors LLC if you would like. And again, just simply selecting that on your application, or choosing Homestead or Homestead Roommate, either again by yourself or with a group, or going through open space selection where you can select an entirely new space as well. We also have all of these listed on our website, the different types of spaces that you can live in. And we also, on our Instagram story, we have a highlight for the returner process where it kind of breaks down what all of these mean and some examples. And here are the floor plans of every space in Cougar Village. So it ranges from 2 to 3 bedroom apartments, and in those range from either shared or private bedrooms, but at max, there's never more than 4 students within an apartment. So I mentioned roommate groups a little bit. If you are familiar with this with your current roommates, as you know, is once you complete your application, it takes you right into the roommate portal. And so if you know who you want to live with next year, you all have to complete the application, and then you can go find each other in the roommate portal to create your group. Me, as if I was the leader of my group, I am going to send out the request to everyone. Everyone's going to hit yes. Once everyone does that, I will verify it. And then we are 100% in a roommate group, and we will stay that way throughout the process. And so the groups need to be verified to go through open space selection and to be a homestead or homesteader roommate. And again, this process has to be done by January 30th. if you want to have that roommate group. And I will pass it over to Dan to talk about open space selection.
Thanks, Bridget. And as a quick reminder, before we talk about open space selection, we do have the Q&A open as part of this call. So if you do have questions, feel free to start posting any questions that you may have. Kara is available to start answering those as we go through. And for some of the questions, we may also highlight as we kind of continue through. So a big part of our returning resident application is the open space selection. The vast majority of our students participate in open space selection, which essentially allows them to select any of the open spaces in either Evergreen Hall or Cougar Village. And they can pick what specific room, what building, if they're out in Cougar Village. And it works very similar to course registration, to where each student is assigned a time slot to participate in open space selection. And it is heavily determined by the semester that they started at SIUE, as well as how many semesters they lived on campus. And then we use a couple different tiebreakers, such as total credit hours earned and GPA, which really kind of focuses a little bit more on the seniority piece for students that live on campus. Time slots for open space selection will go out around February 6th. The important piece to note, though, is that if you are in a roommate group, each student in a roommate group may have a different time slot. So once time slots go out, it's important for you to talk to the other roommates in your roommate group to see who has the earliest time slot. The student who has the earliest time slot can pick their space first and will pull through their requested roommates to that unit. So if they pick a Cougar Village apartment, they would pull their roommates through as well. Every student does get a confirmation email. So it's really important that you check that confirmation email. So if there is, like, if it's like, oh, I should meant to be in this bedroom and my roommate used to be in this one, that it's really easy for us to fix, especially during the process. But just make sure that you check your email to make sure that your assignment looks correct. Students can select a completely open shared bedroom in Cougar Village, and if they would like to upgrade that space to a deluxe private, they need to call the central housing office to upgrade that space. We do it real time, and it allows us to close off that other bed in that bedroom so that another student can't assign themselves to that space. As I mentioned, it's really important, though, that that's done during the space selection piece, or at least during open space selection. The further that we get into the process or even past the open space selection, the harder it is for us to move folks around. So it is really, really important that that you upgrade that space as quickly as possible. So here are a couple screenshots in terms of what selection will look like. We also have a video that will walk students through as well. But essentially, you would check your roommate group members where that first red arrow is, and it would list every student in your roommate group. Again, if that doesn't look correct, definitely let us know. But you should have confirmation of who is in that roommate group, and then you would pick which community you're interested in looking at, whether it be Cougar Village or Evergreen Hall. And from there, you can filter what room types you're interested in. The left side shows different Cougar Village apartments, and the right side shows Evergreen. So if you clicked Cougar Village, it would show the Cougar Village spaces, and same with Evergreen. And it will show every available space on campus. You can scroll through those available options within that community, and then you would click Add to Cart. One really cool thing, though, is you can see how many beds are in that bedroom when you're viewing it. So for instance, 402-1D-2, you see the 2 underneath that. That's the very bottom right on the left-hand side of the screen, the very bottom right option. You see the little icon, the little bed icon, and the number 2. That means that there are 2 beds available in that room. You can click the show room info, and it will show you that whole unit and who is assigned or not assigned if there are open spaces in there. So if it's a totally empty unit, you can use that. If you're a student going through open space selection by yourself, you can also see like who else is assigned to that space. as you go through. But once you decide which space you're interested in, you would click Add to Cart. Here you would select which bed you're interested in. So whether it be the private bedroom, which would be the 2B1A, the top one, or the shared bedroom, which is the second one. And you can see again 2 total spaces available. So 2 beds are available in the bottom one versus 1 bed in the top. And then you can use the drop down to assign your roommate group students to which bed you would like. And then you would just click continue. And then assign beds, and it will assign the beds to those specific spaces. And then from there, it'll give you a confirmation screen, and then you'll click save and continue, and then that will allow you to kind of lock in your decision. I hate to use this as an example because I'm sure many folks don't like Ticketmaster, but what it essentially does is it holds, once you add a room to cart, it will pull that entire unit out of the inventory for a set amount of time. So it kind of holds those spaces, kind of similar again to how Ticketmaster may hold a block of seats when you kind of move through. And so once you select that unit, it will take that out so that nobody else can kind of jump in and grab it. But it does give you some time. But there is a countdown timer, which you can see at the very top of the screen next to the log out button, that will count down. So you have to finalize your selection before that. Once it's assigned, once the room is assigned, every student in the roommate group will receive a confirmation email stating what room they've been assigned to, what room type it is, and then who the other roommates are in that space at that given time. You do have the option to go through and select a new room. So for some students, let me go back. For some students, we do have folks that move around during open space selection. It's open for about 3 weeks or so. And so students may move around. So like if you don't get like your top choice, we really highly recommend just go in and select a space that you would be happy with. But then you can log back in at any time and see if anything has shifted. We sometimes get cancellations during open space selection. Sometimes we're able to consolidate students and open up full units, depending on what else is going on. But you are able to log in the exact same way anytime from when your time slot starts to the end of the process, and select a new space if you're interested in doing so. So a question that we get pretty regularly is, what do I do if the space I want is not available during open space selection? Our office, and I would say specifically Kara, but our office overall manages what we call the wish list. So once students select and assign themselves to a space, they are able to come into the office either by themselves or with their roommate group, and they sign a physical wish list. The list is very open-ended, and students are able to say, like, I really want this, but if I can't get this, then I'll like, this is good too. But they kind of list their different options. And then as we get cancellations throughout the spring semester and really into summer, we will continue to move through the wish list for that. We kind of go by room type, so that we're able to do that, but there generally is a decent amount of movement on the wish list. So again, we highly recommend, come into the office, come talk to us. Part of the reason that we have students come into the office is so that we can talk through and best understand what room type or room setup or roommate group setup that you're looking for. And it really allows us to best understand your requests so that we can honor as many of those as possible. So as a reminder, the online application is open, and you can just go to My Housing, so siue.edu/myhousing. You do need to complete the application and pay the $200 advance payment, as Bridget mentioned. The $200 advance payment gets applied to your fall housing bill. So again, there's really not a cost. It's really just a way for us to hold your space, just so that students that are wanting a specific type of space, we know that they're committed to coming in the fall. If you can't, for students that say your plans change, maybe you leave SIUE, maybe you want to do something different with your living situation, students can cancel without penalty until May 1st. So what that means is that if you cancel by May 1st, you would get that $200 credited back to your student account. So again, if you're like, I think I'm going to do, I'd like to live on campus, we really recommend that you complete the application and go through the process. Because again, there is a cost to it, but there's really not, like, you can get that back if you do cancel. Unlike a lot of other, like if you were to sign a lease off campus, like sometimes there are steeper penalties with that as well. So with that, we definitely want to make sure that we have time for questions. I will leave our contact information up on the screen. But we work in the central housing office in Rundleman Hall on the lower level. You can always give us a call during business hours, 8 to 4:30, or you can send us an email, housing@siue.edu. I strongly recommend that you follow us on social media. We post a lot of fun stuff on there, not just announcements, but also, what's going on campus and within housing. I do want to note that the university is closed for the winter break from December 24th through January. We reopen on January 5th. So just know that we won't be able, or there will not be any replies back, but we do have about a month that we're back to be able to answer questions about the open space selection or returning resident application process. So with that, make sure that you post any questions that you have in the Q&A, and we'll go from there. So I do see a question about Woodland or Prairie, and this would include Bluff as well. Over the last several years, we have offered the opportunity for upper class students to live in Prairie or Woodland due to anticipated first year enrollment and just overall housing demands. That won't be an option for fall of 26. So you would be required to live in either Cougar Village or Evergreen Hall. Generally speaking, freshmen and sophomores are not really able to live together. The primary reason for that is from a programmatic standpoint, our curriculum that we follow and support structures in Bluff, Prairie, and Woodland are heavily designed to support first-year students as they transition to SIUE, whereas our upper class communities have a little bit of a different curriculum, different programmatic focuses, and look at support for our upper class students. So unfortunately for this upcoming fall, you would not be able to be assigned together. What other questions do folks have? So to add a room to your cart, you won't be able to do that until open space selection opens in February. So just make sure that you get your application completed by January 30th, and then make sure that you select open space selection as your choice. You will receive an email the week after with instructions as well as your move-in time slot, or your open space selection time slot. And at that point, on or after your time slot passes, so if your time slot is at 9 a.m. on Tuesday in February, you can log back into My Housing and click the open space selection button, and it will take you to that search page. And again, if you're in a roommate group, anybody in your roommate group, whoever has anybody can always go in and make changes or assign you spaces. But typically what we see is the student with the earliest time goes in first. I will note that our time slots are during business hours, just so that we can also help assist students kind of look for spaces. We can make recommendations if it's like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Can you help me out? again, feel free to give us a call. We also have chat capabilities on our application and on the open space selection. So we are able to kind of, again, provide a little bit of guidance at there as well. Any other questions? We are happy to stay on if folks have questions, but if you don't have any other questions, um, feel free to hop off. We will post a recording of this on our website, usually within 24 or so hours. So if you're curious about anything else that's asked, you can always hop on then. And again, if you do have any like specific questions about maybe your living situation, you can always send us an email, housing@siub.edu, or you can give us a call during business hours, and we're happy to kind of talk through that. Great question about meal plans. So for Evergreen and Cougar Village, students are not required to have a meal plan. So they can select the traditional meal plans A, B, and C, which students in Bluff Prairie and Woodland are required to have one of those plans. Um, so students in Cougar Village or Evergreen can still pick meal plans A, B, or C. They can also select, we have lower level meal plans for upper class students, D and E, which are in $500 and $1,000 increments. And they operate exactly like the regular meal plan does. Um, or you can go without a meal plan. I would say that the vast majority of our students, we have over 3,000 students on campus. I would say roughly 2,800 have some sort of meal plan on campus. So the vast majority have a meal plan. Honestly, most of our students have a regular full meal, meal plan A, B, or C. But we do have a decent number of folks that pick D and E, so that 500 and 1,000. It just kind of depends on what your preferences are. I would consider your class schedule. You can also change your meal plan up to 2 weeks into the semester. So, if you apply today, whatever you pick, you could go and change, over the summer or once the semester starts and you're like, ooh, maybe I'm not going to cook as much, or maybe I'm going to cook a little bit more than what I thought. Um, Evergreen and Cougar Village, the units either have kitchens in the unit or in Evergreen, we have community kitchens that we regularly see students use. So you kind of have either option available. Any last questions? Give it about another minute, and then we will hop off. But feel free again if you have any other questions, reach out to us, send us an email, give us a call, hop on chat during business hours. Um, any way that we can kind of help answer any questions, or as you take time over the winter break, maybe talk with your family about different options, or talk to your friends about kind of what they're thinking. Um, now is definitely kind of the best time when you don't have class and other things to kind of focus on. You can think about what your housing plans are. So it looks like we may have a question from Patricia Smith. I can see if I can unmute you as well.
Okay, it's not letting me put a question in the Q&A, but so what would my roommate and I do if we don't have two other people yet?
So that's totally fine. You have a couple different options. We do have a number of students that go through with just two people. That go through open space selection with just two people, and they may find a space that they're interested in, or maybe they have the whole unit, or maybe they, if it's evergreen, there's really not an opportunity to have a whole unit with a requested roommate. But you can work to get to select a unit, and then you guys would be together, and then other students would kind of fill in. The other option is both of you, if both of you have applied, and you can use the roommate matching tool as part of the application to look at other returning students that are interested in looking for roommates. And you can look at like your match percentages and their bios, what information they're sharing. And you can add additional folks through January 30th. I will say if you guys have verified your roommate group already, just send us a quick email. We can unverify that, and then that'll allow you all to search for or look at other students that are looking for roommate groups. They can also look for you as well. But that typically we see that pretty regularly. What I will tell you is that the vast majority of our students will apply usually in the second half of January. We have a decent number of students that have already applied, but usually like the last 2 weeks in January is when we see the bulk of our folks apply. So again, if you're looking for additional roommates, that would be kind of the best time to log back in and look and see, who else are looking for roommates.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah, well, thank you all for attending. As I mentioned, we are going to post this again within about 24 hours on our website under the returning resident application page. But if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our office, and we hope everybody has a great winter break. Thank you.